And I'm going to share my screen with you all. Let me get there real quick. Okay, I think you should be able to see this. Just a second, let me present. Okay, so we want to welcome you to the fourth and final workshop that SORC is putting on this semester, and it is on combating Zoom fatigue and burnout. What a year it's been, what a semester it's been, and we just thought this was necessary, especially as we go into the holiday season, which can sometimes be even more taxing. We really wanted to put on this workshop so that hopefully during the holiday season, you can take these tips and tricks that we're going to talk about today and implement them into your life somehow, and hopefully find some peace and just rest, right? So thank you again for joining us. We're so glad you're here. Quickly, to just go over what we're going to talk about today, we're going to do a land acknowledgement to start off. We're going to do an overview of SORC, which is the department and office that is putting on these workshops for you. We're going to talk a little bit about defining stress, wellness, self-care, burnout, and then we're going to move into strategies to implement so that you can combat this stress and this burnout. And then we'll share some campus resources and provide time for you all to ask questions at the end. But also, feel free to ask questions throughout using the chat feature. We will be monitoring it as well. So we first want to start off by doing the land acknowledgement. We find that this is a great activity, especially now that not everyone is on campus or in College Park. Some folks are spread across Maryland or across the East Coast or even country. And so we think it's a beneficial exercise to do, and we ask that you try to do it. We encourage you to do it in your student org meetings, in your departmental meetings, in your staff meetings. And so I'll read this verbatim, and it starts off with every community owes its existence and strength to the generations that is before them around the world, who contributed to their hopes, dreams, and energy into making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, and some were drawn to migrate from their homes in hopes of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical in building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. At the Student Organization Resource Center, we believe it is important to create dialogue to honor those that have been historically and systematically disenfranchised. So we acknowledge a truth that is often buried. We are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway people, who were among the first in the Western Hemisphere. We are on indigenous land that was stolen from the Piscataway people by European colonists. We pay respect to Piscataway elders and ancestors. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And like we said, we really enjoy this activity because I think it allows people to think about the history of the land that they are currently occupying, no matter where they are. And so I'm pretty sure my co-presenter put a link in the chat for the map you see here. And it's a really cool interactive tool that we like to use as well. And you can zoom in on these lands and see what indigenous or native peoples occupied them before colonists, European settlers arrived. And so that way you can pay tribute to those specific folks. So we really encourage you to use this in your upcoming activities. So again, welcome. We would like to say hello. So these are the folks that are in the Student Organization Resource Center. We are the people that make it up, if you will. This is the full-time staff you see in the photo. So Ashley Veneman is our manager of the Student Org Resource Center, Student Involvement Suite. She's right there in the middle. And then Foster McDaniel on the left is the coordinator for Student Org Development. He's been here now just over a year and a half. And then myself, I'm the graduate assistant right there on the right. And I've also been here a year and a half and very excited to be with you all in community this evening. So the three of us help to work and supervise and support student orgs and our student staff there in the top left photo. So we do employ undergraduate students that sit at the front desk, and we are open currently. So we encourage you to come visit us, come join us with your questions. You utilize our space right there in the bottom photo. We have a bunch of collaborative spaces. You can come in and study and work and have group meetings, and we really encourage you to visit us. We are in the Stamp Student Union. We're on the ground floor, and like I said, we are open even during the pandemic, so stop on by. But if you don't feel comfortable joining us in person, that's totally fine. We are available online, and so we encourage you to join our virtual office hours. And the link right there is go.umd.edu/virtual-sorc. And so we will have someone there to help you. You can also email us or give us a phone call. But our physical office hours are there. These are going to be our hours post-Thanksgiving break. And then currently we are open 8 to 8 during the weekday and on Saturday 12 to 5. But again, those hours are post-Thanksgiving break. What SORC does, we do a number of things. So we do programming like this. We have developmental workshops. We have the first and second look fair, this year virtual, which is exciting. And we also do engaging programming, helping with homecoming and Terps After Dark, Maryland Day, and a bunch of larger scale events. We also do logistics, such as room reservations, printing access, locker management. Some of those are a little bit limited this semester because of the pandemic, such as printing access and room reservation, but we still are here to help support you logistically in a virtual environment. We also do budgeting with our SORC finance arm, so they help with motor pool, transportation requests, contracts, bank statements, and the like. So we encourage you to reach out with any requests there. You can also find us at Maryland SORC on Instagram, or you can visit stamp.umd.edu to learn more about SORC. We are currently hiring, and actually, dang it, I forgot to include that slide, I think, in tonight's presentation, but we are hiring, and applications are open until December 2nd, I believe. And so tell your students or yourselves to get your application in. That will be marketed and promoted on our website as well as our social media, so visit to check out. And we also have The Word, which is our newsletter, our weekly newsletter that comes out, and one just came out today, so make sure you subscribe to that. So a few things as we get into the workshop. It is being recorded. So if you wish to not be seen or heard, make sure you keep everything muted and off. But we just want to make sure that you are aware of that. And we'll post it on YouTube later so that you can access this material and you can revisit it. We ask you to please mute yourself when you aren't speaking, but if you have questions, unmute yourself, put them in the chat, save them until the end, whatever makes you comfortable, and we hopefully can answer them. So to get started, we just want to, again, welcome you, thank you for coming, and just take a breath. Sometimes I think we're going through our day so quickly, and it's like rush, 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 and people don't have time to breathe. So I invite you to sit up tall or stand up tall, whatever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And we want to do this simple exercise with you. It's one of the most simple, easy strategies to relax yourself, and that is deep breathing. It's very effective. It can happen in a short amount of time. And so we want you to breathe from the diaphragm. And we also want you to follow the words on the screen, and as the video or as the circle dilates, follow the instructions. So I'll give you a second to just breathe. Okay, hopefully you're a little more centered, a little more grounded, a little more focused, and you can take just a moment to decompress from the day's activities. So we invite you to keep breathing throughout this presentation. So to start off, we want to talk a little bit about wellness, self-care, burnout, oh my. I want to invite you to reflect for a second, and feel free to either share by unmuting yourself or putting in the chat, what are some words that come to mind when you think of the word wellness, or what are some thoughts or feelings or words that are evoked when you think of the word wellness? You can go ahead and put those in the chat. Health, I like that. Yes, I think that's a really great one. Peace, I love that. Meditation and fitness, we might get to that a little later. Equity, that's another good one. These are awesome. Okay, yeah, those are definitely some great starts. So I kind of wanted to ask your thoughts before we give you what the University Health Center shares. They share that wellness is more than health. It's living fully. And so I'm not going to read this verbatim, but this statement talks about wellness being conscious, inclusive, self-directive, involving, and holistic. So as you can see here on the right-hand side, there are 8 dimensions of wellness that the university promotes. So emotional, environmental, physical, social, vocational, intellectual, financial, and spiritual. And wellness is definitely affected by culture, your lived experiences, your background, your current environment. And these dimensions of wellness are not always going to be in balance, right? They are going to be more in a harmony for you. That's what the Wellness Center wants you to strive toward, is a harmony that is personal for you and that works for you, right? If you have more physical wellness than you do social, so be it. But if it works for you, that's great. We just want you to be holistically well. However, when you think of wellness, there's always an opposite to things. And when you think of the opposite of wellness, it can be not being well, and that can be caused by stress. And so I want to reflect again, and I invite you to put in the chat, what are the stressors in your life currently that are maybe plaguing your mind, or you constantly think about, and how do they make you feel both physically and emotionally? So if you want to give a brief example in the chat or unmute yourself, we invite you to do that now. I know to share an example while hopefully you're all typing, I'm a grad student, right? And so I'm working, but I'm also taking coursework. And so that is a stressor in my life right now. It's a positive stressor because I'm getting an education, but it's definitely causing some stress as I'm writing papers and trying to read and maintain a good GPA. And then not to mention next semester will be job searching. So that will also be a stressor. Let's see. Oh. One of our participants shared that uncertainty, going home with the holidays, that is very relevant. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, the uncertainty of going home for the holidays and the spring semester, what's that looking like? I think that's causing many people stressors, right? Not just our students, but our faculty, our staff, our administrators, the family and friends of the students that are here on campus, our relatives. Like that's incredibly valid and relevant, that feeling of stress related to this uncertainty and ambiguity. So stress has many triggers, right? This is not an exhaustive list, but maybe you can identify with and relate to some of these triggers, right? COVID concerns, my goodness, this whole year has been around that trigger, right? But relationships, whether that's platonic, romantic, professional, money, lack of sleep, which I'm sure none of us get enough of, body image, right? Like I'm not going to go through all these, but I'm sure that we can pick out, each one of us, a handful of these triggers that are constantly leading to some sort of stress in our life. And it looks different for different people. So I wanted to kind of talk about what is stress first and foremost, to name and identify this, this root of our feelings, and both physical and mental. So stress is a result of the changes, pressures, conflicts, and frustrations that we experience in life. And it can have both physical and or emotional, it can have an emotional toll on us as well. So it is an unavoidable part of the human experience, whether you're young, old, no matter your identities that are salient to you, stress is unavoidable. But it's not always bad. It can be a positive thing. So initially, when humanity started out, stress was a sign of, I need to eat, I'm in danger, I'm cold, I need to find warmth or shelter, it's raining, you know. So stress is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a very positive thing. It can be a motivator for many, many folks. It helps us to wake up on time. It helps us to escape danger. It lets us to know when things aren't right. And so it can be positive. However, too much stress, as all things in moderation, can be a bad thing. So when you experience too much stress, this is when it leads to chronic stress. So chronic stress is defined as the occurrence of life stressors that are unrelenting, or they're small stressors that accumulate and you're unable to recuperate. So the straw that broke the camel's back, or that constant barrage of things that are leading to your stress, this is chronic stress. And chronic stress doesn't show up in everyone. However, chronic stress does play into certain identities. And I'll get to that in a sec, but we wanted to share with you how this stress shows up. So it can show up, like I said, both physically and or emotionally. It can show up in headaches, your increased heart rate, upset stomach, fatigue, sleep difficulties, tightness of chest, right? When it shows up emotionally, you're anxious, your heart rate increases, you're irritable. I don't want to talk, right? You can be sad, you can mood swings, you're unfocused, you just can't get stuff done. And so again, this list is not exhaustive. Like the triggers, this list is not exhaustive or all-encompassing, but these are some of the very common physical and emotional stressors, or how stress manifests itself in our body. And again, it does look different for everyone. And that's why we wanted to talk today a little bit about minority stress theory as well, because stress looks different with people who hold minoritized identities. Those folks face more of that chronic stress, that unrelenting, consistent stress in their life. Minority stress theory was first researched in LGBTQ+ populations in 2003, and has since been continuously researched and explored. And we thought today would be a great time to shed some light on it, because of just so much of what is happening in our world today, this year, with racial inequities, with election stress, right? There's the election we just had. We have COVID-19, which is disproportionately affecting people of color. And so we wanted to really highlight this and give an acknowledgement to this theory that folks who have minoritized or marginalized identities experience this extra stress because of prejudice and discrimination that they face in their everyday life. It is additive to the general stress that they're already facing. So imagine you're already anxious, and then you have more anxiety on top of that because of identities that you find salient in. And then it can lead to poor health outcomes compared to individuals who do not experience this minority stress. A little bit more about minority stress theory is that it's unique, chronic, and socially based. So there's these three facets to minority stress theory. It's unique in the way that it's not experienced by everyone. So there are folks who operate in very privileged settings, and they may not experience this. And then there are folks who have minoritized identities that are maybe not salient to them, or they are, but they're not visible to others, and they may experience it. They just might not show this stress to you. And then there are folks who have very visible minoritized identities, and this stress is constantly weighing on them. So it's not experienced by everyone. An example is that, it can be exciting to start a new job, right, for anyone, but it can be nerve-wracking if someone finds out that you, because you're married to someone of the same sex, that could lead to your termination, right? So that's an example of a unique stress. Like, everyone can be excited to start a job, but because of your relationship status, you could face backlash from that. Therefore, you have to hide it, be in secrecy, and that can lead to that extra pressure. Chronic, it's relatively stable, consistent due to underlying social and cultural structures. So chronic being, if a person of color is constantly having to talk about their experiences at work, and then they go home and have to maybe share their experiences with roommates, right, or friends, or they have to see content on the news. And so that's it's constant. It's everywhere, right? And then socially based is around the social processes, institutions, and structures that are beyond individual events characterized by general stress. So if you think of maybe a woman who is transgender, when she goes to the doctor, that can be stressful for everyone across the board, but especially a woman who is transgender, because if her identities are not affirmed and recognized on paper as they are, like as she's sitting in front of you, that can be stressful. That dissonance, that disconnect, and those social processes are not they're not affirming her, and they are not recognizing her identity, which therefore leads to minority stress theory. So we just kind of want to give a little insight into what stress is, the causes, how it shows up, triggers, but also maybe how it's more relevant and even more applied in some instances with folks who have different identities. We also wanted to just share that this little graphic, I thought it was kind of cute, but don't forget to check in on folks. Just because this cactus doesn't need a lot of water doesn't mean we shouldn't check in and ask if they want some water right now, right? So check in on folks. Ask your friends, how are they doing? If you haven't checked in with someone, your family members, how are you? How can I be there to support you? What do you need from me, right? I think that was something in the RSVP on TerpLink this evening that someone left that they wanted to take away is, how can I connect with folks in this pandemic? Because everyone's on Zoom right now. How can I check in? Give them a phone call, write them a letter, postcard, text, maybe meet in a parking lot, and just check in on folks. And what do you need? How can I help you? So we just wanted to show that cute little comic. With the accumulation of all this stress leads to burnout, or comes burnout. When you have such prolonged anxiety or paranoia, or when your body is constantly telling you that something's wrong, or you can't sleep at night, it's going to lead you to burnout. And I actually didn't think this was a thing when I was younger. I was like, one time my mom, she goes, I think you're burned out. And I was like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? And she told me about it, and I was like, I think that's what I'm experiencing right now. It's a bodily reaction to long periods of stress. And it was recognized in May of 2019 by the World Health Organization. Some of the symptoms are cynicism, lethargy, mental, emotional, and or physical fatigue. And so I'm curious, and in the chat, you all can put, what roles do you currently hold that contribute to your stress? Are you a faculty member, right? Trying to get full professorship? Are you someone like me who's a student who's looking for job opportunities? Are you someone who is a parent and you're trying to just ensure that your child is receiving a quality education right now? So if you all put any roles that contribute to your stress in the chat, I can read them off, but I don't see any right now. But yeah, some of those roles are fantastic roles, but they can definitely add to stress. and then burnout. Oh, we actually have someone said, being an international student, stuck learning remotely. Absolutely, not having that support system. That is very, very true. Yeah, I mean, we're all just we're all in roles right now that we have had to transition and pivot, and it's a challenge, and we're all adapting and still learning. And so I think it's important to give yourself grace. But also I think it's important to take time for self-care. And self-care right there is identified as techniques used to reduce and alleviate stress. And so while I go through the rest of the bullets, I want to invite you again to put in the chat, what are some self-care strategies that you utilize? What are things that work for you? You know, I really like skincare. and that's my self-care. I love in the morning and at night to decompress with just a good skincare routine, right? The chat, some folks are saying trying to be outside because this person loves the outdoors, but it is hard, especially if the cold weather comes. It can be challenging. But yeah, some of the free strategies listed here are sleep, and we all know that's easier said than done. But sleeping on the weekends, right? Deep breathing, like we started out this workshop with, meditation. I know that there are some great podcasts, some great YouTube videos that lead folks in meditation. Napping is a good one. I'm a big proponent of naps. Exercise, really great to get those endorphins released and going. You know, whether that be running, yoga, weightlifting, connecting with nature is a good one. I think that really helps to sometimes center, ground, and bring people back. And it's recommended that you try each one of these more than once, right? If you don't like it the first time, maybe you go outside and try to exercise outside, but it's raining, you know, you're probably not gonna have a good time. But if you try it again when it's sunny, it might be a different experience. So definitely try these strategies more than once. Again, we encourage you to do that. I'm trying to see, there's something in the chat. Painting, I love that. Artistic and creative expression is incredible. I know some folks sing in the shower, right? Or they dance. But I love the painting. That's a really great one. And so these are all great strategies. Listening to music, right? Playing an instrument is always great. Acting, all great, sometimes free strategies if you have supplies around the house, or strategies you can engage with to take care of yourself. So we don't just want to talk about self-care in relation to like the everyday life, because we're not living in a normal setting, right? Like we're in this virtual environment constantly, which leads to Zoom fatigue, or just this online screen fatigue of constantly going from one meeting to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's tiring, right? Like I know as a grad student, I have 3-hour classes, and it's like, oh, I have to sit here for 3 hours and try and pay attention and learn. And it can be very challenging, especially if that's not your learning style or your engagement style or the way you work best. And so another self-care tip that is specifically related to Zoom fatigue that I wanted to touch on is disconnecting from technology. So turning off your phone, that's a good way to just start, right? And someone told me, they're like, this is ironic, Nathan. You are having a workshop on Zoom fatigue and burnout on Zoom. And I said, yes, well, there's no other way right now to present it, unless we wanted to all get together very physically distant. But turn off your phone. That's a great way to start. Put away your email, laptop, maybe even turn off your TV. You know, sometimes a way to kind of decompress is to watch TV, but sometimes that can still contribute, even though you don't realize it. But escape social media and news media as well. I know, especially around the election, I told myself, I'm not going to check social platforms, I'm not going to watch anything, and I'm not going to read anything. I'm simply going to check the Google updates from the Associated Press, right? I think, especially during stressful times, it can be so easy to become inundated with just all this content, right? Like all of this content. And I think it's important to turn off turn down, put away, and to step away. And you can do that by setting boundaries. How much time a day do you want to spend online? Obviously, it's a little harder when you work online or when you're taking classes. But, at 7 p.m., am I going to turn everything off and just be present with my family and friends and not be on any virtual platforms? That could be an idea. Turn off your camera. So I think I can't see everyone right now, but I know some folks have their camera turned off. Totally fine. It helps to reduce that fatigue from Zoom. Schedule breaks, whether that be throughout the day or in long meetings. So like I said, 3-hour classes can be a lot. So we've incorporated breaks into the classes that I teach, as well as the classes that I sit in on and I'm learning from. And so I try to get up and get a drink of water, go outside for a quick break, maybe like do some jumping jacks or something physical. And then the last little tip there we have with boundaries is making meetings and agendas shorter. Can this be an email? Can this be a phone call, right? I think at the beginning, everyone was like, oh, Zoom, like, this is great. Let's have Zoom birthday parties and Zoom brunch and Zoom this and Zoom that. And it was great, right? But I was like, no, I need to get away. And so I actually, and you're more than welcome to take this. This is not, like, this is my idea, but you can take it. But I started this little weekly time to myself where I would call someone on the phone, but I would also walk. So I named it Cathartic Conversations and Cardio. And so I would go on a walk and get some cardio in and talk on the phone with someone that I hadn't talked with in a while, whether it be a family member, a friend, a colleague. And so that was really great to just get away and not, it would have been great to see their face, but I was like, I need a break from that right now. So that's a great idea if you're into walking and being outside or on the treadmill maybe as the weather gets colder. So these are some of our tips and tricks for combating Zoom fatigue specifically. Are there any, I'm going to keep moving, but I would love to hear anyone else's self-care Zoom fatigue strategies that you all use, because this is not all of them, I'm sure. And so I would love to hear some of what you all do. So this is the part where we move into strategies for combating burnout, stress, and fatigue. And actually, looking at our time, we're doing pretty well. And one thing I wanted to talk about before we go into this, and I cut this slide because I wasn't sure, but it's this idea of using spoons to quantify how much energy you have. And so you can do it when you wake up in the morning. You can do it as like kind of taking a pulse for how much energy you have throughout the day. It can be something that you do at the end of the day as well. But my supervisor and co-presenter who's on the call told me about it. I won't make him talk about it. But essentially, say you start with 10 spoons, right? You wake up with 10 spoons and the commute to work is going to take 1, and your meeting with your supervisor is going to take another 1, and maybe the bad news via email you got is going to take 3. And so it's kind of thinking about how can I manage my energy throughout the day, and what do I need to do to gain spoons and preserve my energy? So, if waking up takes a whole spoon out of your 10 spoons, for me, maybe skincare gives me back that spoon. So I'm back at 10, right? Some people start with 25 spoons when they wake up in the morning. Some people start maybe with 2. But at the end of the day, you should have depleted most of your spoons. That way you can get a good night's rest. But it's just a good way to kind of quantify the energy you have and to kind of moderate, like a fuel gauge, if you will, of where am I at right now? Like it's the evening. How many spoons do I have? Right? And like, what am I going to do the rest of the evening that's going to give me a few back? And what might take a few? So that's just like I said, I cut it because I wasn't sure we were going to have enough time, but great exercise and quick kind of fuel gauge or pulse, if you will, to know where you're at in the day. And maybe what strategies that we're going to talk about, maybe you should implement to gain some of these spoons back. So something that's I learned a few years ago is to do a brain dump. I was feeling constantly anxious. This was like my senior year of college, and I was stressed with grad school applications and getting into the right grad school, and then getting an assistantship, and then graduating, and all of the things that come with graduating. And I just constantly had things to do, and they were always in my mind floating around, and I couldn't quite seem to get them in a prioritized order. I couldn't seem to get them all, remember them all. I would remember one and forget another. And so a brain dump is a great exercise to do, to get everything down on paper. And it's exactly what it sounds like. So take a pen and paper, write down all the thoughts that are floating around in your head, and just get them out. Empty out your head and your thoughts and your mind. And it's a good way to just slow down. It's a great way to organize, prioritize, and remember what needs done, so a to-do list. And it may help you to reduce your anxiety. So I know sometimes I'll do this. If all of a sudden I find myself quickly thinking of things, I'm like, oh goodness, I have to do this, this, this. I just sit down, write a quick list, come back to it later. That way I don't forget things. I can put them in order, I can check them off, and things get done. So this is quick and simple, brain dump. It's a great way to help reduce anxiety, prioritize, and get things done. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is to use apps. And I know you're probably thinking, Nathan, we're trying to unplug from technology, and here you are giving us apps. But if maybe you're not experiencing Zoom fatigue, but you are experiencing burnout or stress and anxiety, these could be helpful for you. So some self-care apps that the Wellness Center encourages, and that I've even used myself, are the Calm app. So I know that there is, I think, a version you can pay for, but there's a free version as well. And so I love to put on the crackling fire sound when I fall asleep. And so that is something that they have, I think, maybe crickets and thunderstorms you can listen to, and I think they might even have bedtime stories. Great app to try to bring you down from the day, or throughout the day even. Headspace is another great app, very similar. I think there is a paid version and a free version. And then the podcast app right there. I have recently really gotten into podcasts, and I love them. Listening to Oprah and Brene Brown, and I found this one for bedtime stories for adults, just to fall asleep at night. And there's a lot of great content on podcasts. I don't have any to share with you right now, but if you'd like to learn more, reach out and I can put something together for you. But then Wellness Track is another app that the health center uses as well to track your wellness. I can't say I've used it, but I think they really do promote it and encourage it. And so it'd be something to check out and to try. Some app management apps that I encourage you to try are there below. Flipped. So it's a timer essentially for your smartphone or for your apps. So at a certain time, you set at 7 p.m. all of my social media apps are going to turn off, and I won't be able to access them until X time in the morning. So it's a great way to prioritize your time, manage your time, but also unplug. I think some of the Freedom and Off Time also do similar things. And then the Focus Keeper right there is to help with time management, productivity, and it's around the Pomodoro method, if you all know what that is. So I encourage you to check out some of these apps. I think most of them should be compatible with both iOS and Android, but I know some of them are not. But I wanted to give you a wide array just in case. So this is a second technique that you all could use. We also want to talk about utilizing the blank space in your schedule. So I think folks, see what they have to do, but I don't think oftentimes people stop and realize, what don't I have to do, or what time do I have that I can do nothing? And so this is not my schedule. This is just a blank schedule, but right now we see on Tuesday the 23rd, this person has 11 to 12 open. So maybe you put on there meditation, right? Or deep breathing, or that's a nap time, a quick just power nap. So utilize the blank space in your schedule and really reserve it for yourself or the ones you love. Schedule you time or me time, and prioritize the more difficult tasks for when you're most productive. I know this is not the best thing I'm going to share, but I'm a night owl. And so I feel most productive in the evenings and late at night. So like I'll crank things out. I'll schedule send emails. I will write for class. And so that's when I feel most productive. I'm not a morning person. So know your body, listen to your body, and what is it telling you? And, you know, don't try to force it to do something that it's not used to doing. Also, another thing that I put in my calendar, another little tip trick for me time, I called it a date for one, when, you know, you could actually go and enjoy the world. But I would go to symphonies on my own. I would go to movies on my own. I would go to shows, museums. I would just schedule a date for one, and I would take myself on a date, and I would enjoy it. And a great way to just enjoy your own company, right? And to get away and to just take time for yourself. So that's a strategy 3. Here we have Eisenhower's Matrix, and let me look at our time. We have a little bit more time than I thought, but I'm not going to play it just because I want to leave time for questions at the end, just in case. But Eisenhower's Matrix, and I'm pretty sure that in the chat, my co-presenter just left the link to this video, and we'll also be putting in a document on how to kind of move about this matrix. But essentially, it's broken into 4 quadrants. And as you can see there is the important and urgent quadrant, which is your do first quadrant. And so this is your do today, do tomorrow, your just very important urgent items, tasks. You know, maybe it's that paper, right, or that email. So these are things that need to get done, and you need to prioritize now. Your less urgent are things that can be scheduled. So that important but less urgent, those are things that can be scheduled, such as maybe some emails, calendar invites, upcoming events. Those are things that you can maybe put off later in the week, or you can spend time doing a little bit later in your day after you get the priorities done that you have that are time sensitive. Your less important and urgent, so that orange quadrant there, those are your that's your delegate task. So you're going to delegate those tasks to other people. Do you have a student staff you could delegate to? Do you have an intern? Do you have a graduate assistant? Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids that you can delegate these things to, right? So that could be what can you give to those people? You know, is it doing the dishes, right? Is it organizing something? Is it doing some phone calls, maybe? What can you delegate to other folks that is going to free up time on your schedule? And then that last quadrant, which is the red quadrant, the less urgent and less important, that is your don't do. That is your simply canceled. You're not going to get to it. It's probably that thing that you've been putting off for 3 months now that you didn't really want to do in the first place. And just cancel it, because internally, subconsciously, it's creating more stress, right? Like, oh, crap, I have to get to that. Just cancel it and take it off your list because it's not something that is clearly urgent or important to you. I think also in the chat was left the document. And so we encourage you to download this document. It's just 1 page. Print it up and use it to kind of figure out what tasks you need to prioritize and write things down. The Eisenhower Matrix was introduced by President Eisenhower, and it's really effective and quite simple. So we encourage you to use it sometime. We also wanted to give campus resources. So I don't want you thinking this was my presentation. I might have put it together, but it was adapted from the UMD Health Center, specifically the Health Promotion and Wellness Services department or office. And so a lot of these tips and techniques were from them. They have a peer educator team that there are a bunch of undergraduate students that can do programming with your staffs and with your teams. And the services offered there, some of them, are time management, birth control consultations, sexual health information, WAGs for wellness, meditation, nutrition. And so we encourage you to utilize their services. I think I have Oh, yep. So here's some more of their services. And go.umd.edu/HPWS, where you can locate more contact information or get in touch with them. And they can really help you with many of your wellness needs. Also, we wanted to touch on mental health services, the Counseling Center and University Health Center. So we encourage you to use these phone lines or their website. The UMD Crisis Counseling line is down there at the bottom. Care Stop Violence, Prince George's County Crisis Response, and the UMD Help Center for peer counseling. We really do encourage you to use these health services, mental health services and resources if you are in need, or share them with your students or your teams. Other than that, that is all I have for you. If you have questions, obviously we will be here to answer them. You can start putting them in the chat. You can unmute yourself, but our email is sork@umd.edu if you have any questions for us, and then go.umd.edu/HPWS for our folks in the health center. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm curious, does anyone have any questions? Or does anyone have any tips, tricks of their own that they would like to share? I guess while you all think about that, I'm curious, maybe what did you all learn that was new today? Is there something that really stuck out to you that was beneficial, that you learned that you're going to try and incorporate into your everyday practices? Well, seeing nothing, we will end this workshop. That is all I have for you. But again, I want to say thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure being in community with you all, hearing from you, and hopefully you found this content to be beneficial. And hopefully you can implement some of these tactics. Thank you, Everett. So, that's very kind of you all. Great workshop, really helpful. Definitely gonna use the apps. You're all very welcome. So we'll stay on the line if you have any questions, but other than that, have a great rest of your evening and finish out the semester strong, everyone. Take care.